Welcome to another edition of the Daily Night. I am your host, Brian Smith, and I am happy to report another commitment for UCF. Dylan Ryzk, quarterback, Cardinal Gibbons High School, 6'2", 200 pounds, out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Now, this is a commitment that is, quote unquote, a little bit surprising, but at the same time, UCF has secured its quarterback for the class of 23. There were a lot of different people speculating on who they were going to get. Malachi Singleton's supposed to announce next week. My guess is UCF got wind they weren't going to get him, and they went with their next option. I don't know if that's true or not. That's 100% speculation on my part, but that's what I think happened. Malachi had been a big product of what they were going after, but Rizick is a kid they'd had on campus several times before, so he must have been the next guy. Again, that's just my opinion. So Rizick is really good, though, and be honest with you, as a playmaker with the ball in his hands, although a little bit different than Malachi, very similar in the sense that he will escape pressure, make plays with his feet, and still hit a guy down the field 30 yards with no problem. Playing at Cardinal Gibbons also helps a lot. It's one of the best coach teams in all of Florida, and it is furthermore a program that is always playing a very competitive schedule. So they played Venice last year, a team that won the 8A state title, played them on the road, and it was the only team to beat Venice. Rizick was the quarterback in that game. So let me just go over a few things that I like about him. Number one is just his mobility. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to run for 800 yards at UCF at any given season, but he is a guy that will extend the play, move the pocket, stiff arm somebody, spin off somebody, make a guy miss, whatever it is. Just call it the it factor. He has a little bit of that. Rizick is a young man that is probably still not quite physically to where he will be. I'll guess 210 to 220 is where he'll end up, about 200 pounds, give or take, right now. So he's going to get more powerful as well. He'll have a stronger arm, number one, but he'll also be able to thwart a little bit more of the bigger guys that you're going to see in college and give himself just that little bit more time, even if it's just to throw it away. I'd rather it be 2nd and 10 than 2nd and 17. Rizick is also a young man that has the ability to run some read option, run pass option, and just flat out run a quarterback sweep or quarterback draw. If you look at him and say, well, what is he more of, a passer or runner? It's passer, but the running ability gives him a threat that other teams have to respect, or he can gash them, especially in the red zone, where if you're only like 5 to 10 yards from the end line, that goal line, you're in a situation where every man must be respected, or you're just flat out taking a chance and not really running a sound defense. UCF, obviously, under Malzahn and Lindsey, like to run the football with the quarterback some, and they're probably going to do that a whole bunch this year. To be clear, Lindsey and Gus can use different kinds of quarterbacks, and JRP is probably going to be the guy this fall based on what I saw in the spring. There is nobody else like him around. I mean, he's a guy who ran for 210 yards against LSU. This kid, on the other hand, is just very mobile in the sense that he will extend to run if he has to, but he'd rather extend, throw it to somebody and let them run. Passer first. I always get that question, is he super accurate and all these? That's just not how it works in high school. Most guys have a billion things they need to work on, and this kid's a little more advanced, especially because of the coaching that he's received at Cardinal Gibbons. But Rizick is not a guy that we're going to have to worry about using his feet or his arm. He can do both. Now, what does he do best? I would say that he really just kind of trusts himself, as goofy as that might sound. He will throw the ball in the middle of the field. He did it against Venice in studying the game film there, and made a couple of clutch throws over the linebacker in front of the safety. That is the quite simply biggest play you can make in football that comes with risk, because it's more or less 2-on-1. The linebacker's in front, the safety's behind, your guy's somewhere in between. Crossing route, dig route, whatever you want to call it is the common one, but sometimes it's just a sit-down route in the zone. Can you get it in there with the right touch that he not only catches it, but doesn't get annihilated right after he does? And that's something Rizick does very well. Most high school quarterbacks, number one, they're told don't throw it in there because we don't trust you. And number two, it's a situation where even if they do, it's usually more luck because there's a busted coverage. It's not really 2-on-1. it's 1-on-0 or it's 1-on-1 and the safety's not that close. He was able to do it against pretty good coverage. Number two, he will also throw on time. There were some routes that he threw, like a smash route, which is a combination of a corner and an out pattern, things of that nature that he threw. The corner came up too close. He throws over the top. Things of that nature are very normal at the college and pro level. And they do it sometimes in high school too. Again, in between two defenders. That's a yes, no checkbox. Is he A, comfortable? Is he B, accurate? Is it 3, on time? All of the above have to be yes, or it just doesn't work. That's why coaches don't like teaching the in-between passes that much at the high school level. There's just so much risk. Now, the other question, can he throw deep? Yes. Does he have a cannon for an arm? No. I would say it's a 6 or 7 at this time, but he's not even a senior in high school yet. He'll probably add quite a bit of velocity between now and the time, let's say he's a redshirt freshman or a sophomore year, whatever it ends up being. Rizick has plenty of mobility, and everything else is going to get better in that regard too, with strength. So it's upside with speed, strength, arm strength, all of the above. I'd say conservatively he's going to gain 15 pounds. I'm guessing 20, but it could be a little more. But I look at it from what I want, and I want mobility above everything else, because everybody tries to hit the quarterback. You have to avoid the rush now. And that's like what I talked about after the spring game. Mikey Keene has to get better laterally, or else he's just not going to pass JRP. He's not. I know Gus has to talk positive, but you cannot just consistently have to throw it away or get sacked when guys come up the middle. This kid has already got that. He'll make a guy miss, move away, throw it away, hit the check down, do something, make a positive out of it. And that's something he can do already. And with more strength, he'll be able to get away with some more guys. The other thing that's really interesting about him is it's when it's a really dire situation. As you would expect, he plays in South Florida. There are a ton of D linemen that are good. A few times it looked horrific from the get-go. It was a bust up front. Guy gets through, and he just scrambles around and makes a play. I'm not saying he's Johnny Manziel, but it's in that realm where he's 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. It's kind of coming at an angle towards the line and then throws off. Everything looks bad, and the play goes good. There's no definition for it. It's just an it factor. You have to be able to make off-platform throws in today's football, even high school football, because the athletes are so good, and he does it consistently. This is something that made me think about the following. He has like 14, 15 offers, but he didn't get a ton of the big boy offers. Miami hadn't even offered him, even though he'd been on campus a few times. And it was just shocking to me because I thought he was as good a quarterback as there was in Florida. I told this to John Garcia probably a month or two ago. He's the director of recruiting for Sports Illustrated. And I'm like, I don't know. He plays in South Florida. He plays for Cardinal Gibbons. They play a tremendous schedule. They win state championships. Why doesn't he have more offers? I don't get it. But UCF is lucky to get him, especially if they're in a situation they just want to take one. This works every year. You're going to get guys like this every now and then, but if you can get somebody at this level or above every year, you're going to bolster your quarterback room. Of note, I think that this is maybe the run that is coming to a close, but this is the 4th commitment since Saturday began. They got a couple on Saturday. One wasn't announced till Sunday. They got another one yesterday, and then now Rizick. So who did they get? They got Isaiah Nixon, the defensive end out of Lakewood High School in St. Petersburg. Very, very good player. They also got Jamal Merriweather. He's at a Brunswick High School in Georgia. It's on the East Coast, not that far from Jacksonville, really. And tremendous upside. He's a high ceiling kid. They got Rizick today, the quarterback out of Cardinal Gibbons. And yesterday they got Javante Connor, and that's a tight end out of North Carolina, but he's originally from the state of Alabama at Opelika High School. He played for Coach Blackman, who is, ironically, the tight ends coach at UCF and special teams coordinator, and that's the connection there. So it is one heck of a week because they had 2 guys committed coming into the week. Now they have 6, so they tripled their numbers. That is rare as it gets. The only other thing I can think of, and like Rizick, nobody saw this coming. The only thing I can think of is there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 more between now and June. but I expect there'll be a little bit of a lull here. College coaches go out on the road. Now they're able to, per NCAA rules, and they'll be able to knock it out in terms of getting transcripts, watching film, and asking 400 million questions to high school coaches that they have to ask, and the coaches do their best to be honest, but at the same time, they support their kids. It's a nightmare that all college coaches go through, because you're going to support your kid, but the college coaches need the information to be correct. So it kind of slows down now, because you go back and you go through and see how much truth there is in some of that, and watch some of your own film. The next thing that really comes up for UCF in recruiting, they'll have camps. They'll have a 7-on-7 camp. They'll have a couple individual camps, a lineman camp, etc. in June. Any day of the week, no rhyme, no reason, there could be a commitment in June. Completely random, and I have no idea who it would be, but I would almost bet you anything there will be at least 2 that I have no idea they're coming, because the kid will just say, I'm ready to commit. They'll just walk up to the coach and tell them. That's just how it works. So sometimes a kid goes to a school and he's never been, and he just falls in love. That's part of the recruiting process and why it's so wild. UCF is no different. Who's it going to be and when and all that? Just month of June, and I don't know who. Between now and then, if they get any, it's a bonus. But at the same time, there's a good problem they have right now, and that's not getting too far ahead of themselves. They're in on a lot of players. Let's, quote unquote, let it play out. UCF, they add to Rizick and these guys, Ford and everybody. Why not just wait and see if you can't get a few of the elite kids, especially here in Florida, that you want? I know that a couple of kids in Georgia they have a really good shot at as well. One of being Troy Ford's teammate. If you can get one really, really good D tackle in this class, would be nice. 2 would be tremendous. They need 2, to be honest. And one of them plays with Troy Ford. I'll get into that in a podcast coming up pretty soon. But my goal in terms of figuring this out is how many kids a year does UCF really want to take high school, and how many from the portal? Right now, I don't think there's probably not a whole lot of difference. It's almost 50-50, because so many kids want to come down to live in Florida. It's not that hard to get a transfer to come out of Georgia or Virginia or wherever. And some kids just come back home for a 5th year or whatever, like Swoboda. So they could be coming pretty close to an end to the high school kids with another 5 to 7 kids. They're roughly halfway home right now. That needs to be noted. As crazy as that seems, UCF is already at 10 kids for the upcoming season that are transfers that'll play their first official game. That spring game doesn't count. In the bounce house, that won't happen until the fall, but they have 10 already, and there could be more now that spring is over. So UCF, I'm guessing yearly is going to be about half and half. So with that, there are a couple other recruiting stories up at Inside the Knights. Again, that is Inside the Knights. Come check it out. We've got plenty of information going on there. Even got a little NBA playoff and some other fun stuff with some of my interns that are helping me out. But recruiting right now is the topic. We're done with spring ball, and I'll have a few more things about the team and some thoughts that I have. But between now and the end of June, recruiting is the main measure. Who you going after? Who's coming in for visits? Did you miss on this kid? Who's next? If you don't get this kid, you get somebody else. That's part of it. And I don't sit here and say anything other than I really enjoy it. It's fun. It's fascinating. There's a lot of human interest to it. How many kids do they get out of Florida? How many kids do they get out of Georgia? Did they finally knock the door down and get a high school player out of the state of Alabama? They may not, and it still may not matter because they're doing so well in Georgia. Who cares? It's just fun to follow recruiting. So UCF roster just got better with Dylan Ryzk. I'm as surprised as you could possibly be, but that's recruiting. So anyway, everybody take your time and check out Inside the Knights and be safe. Take care.